The concept of a shared story universe has been around for quite a while now, and has been made popular thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Many other creators have tried to follow in its footsteps, and many have failed. And the reason why most shared universes fail isn't because the world itself is bad, it's because the strategy behind it is. I'm looking at you, DC.
Brother, this guy stinks!
Today, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about why most shared story universes fail and what creators misunderstand the most about them. Before we get into the video, I want to introduce myself. I'm LDJwrites, a fantasy and science fiction writer who has been creating a shared universe of fantasy and science fiction books since I was 14 years old. Now, before we get into the 5 most common reasons why most shared universes fail, let's get to the bottom of a few big misconceptions. One of the main reasons why people think these types of stories fail is because of the world building, or lack thereof. But in my opinion, that's just a symptom of a larger disease. Now, some common beliefs people have around this subject is that the lore isn't deep enough, the systems that are introduced like the magic system, political system, and histories don't make enough sense, or that there aren't enough rules for the characters and audience to follow. And while all of those things are definitely important to the success of a story, I don't think it's the make or break thing when it comes to a shared universe. World building is simply the infrastructure of your project, but not the product itself. For example, a perfectly designed city still fails if you don't give people a reason to want to live there. And the same thing goes for your universe. If you don't give people a reason to be invested, it doesn't matter how great your world building is, it doesn't matter how many conlangs you have or how many crazy creatures you have, no one's gonna care if they're not invested. And that brings me into the first failure of creating a shared universe of stories. And it's that you're starting off with the universe instead of a singular story. I like to call this the Phase 1 trap inspired by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Luckily they got it right, but so many other creators have gotten it wrong. They start off with a crazy pitch, wild timelines, different eras, spin-offs, and crossover potential. Everyone's chasing that Marvel high, but they're failing to realize that the MCU just started off with one movie. One movie that they weren't even sure was going to do well, and that was Iron Man 1. And at the heart of Iron Man 1, if you exclude the post-credit scene that hints at the Avengers movie, it's a self-contained story about Tony Stark and his journey into becoming Iron Man. And at the time, Iron Man wasn't even a beloved character amongst the general public. He was like a C-tier hero, and with the help of Robert Downey Jr., Jon Favreau, and Marvel Studios, they propelled him into becoming one of the most iconic characters of all time. And that all started with just one highly emotional story. And that's where you have to start with your universe. Franchises that announce 6 projects well in advance before they even nail down their first one are doomed to fail before they even start. This also looks like books that read like pilot episodes instead of a standalone book that has series potential. You can't sell the world, you have to sell the story first. Shared universes must be discovered, not announced. Because let's face it guys, it's 2026. People don't have crazy attention spans anymore to keep waiting and building up stories and diving into all the lore and scrolling through hours and hours of your Wikipedia page. They just don't have that kind of dedication if you don't give them a reason to. Audiences don't commit to universes, not at first. They commit to characters and emotion. And that's what you have to deliver with your first story in your universe. Now, the second common failure that I see when people are trying to start their own universe is that they treat lore like it's homework. And that's definitely what you don't want to do. You don't want to give anyone who's potentially consuming your art any more extra work than they have to, because they're just going to move on to the next project that doesn't give them as much work. Lore should not be homework. If anything, it should be seen as extra credit. You don't need it, but it can definitely help you if you take the extra time out of your day to get it done. There's a common mistake people have when it comes to world building and lore, and it's that complexity equals equality. And I would actually argue that it's the exact opposite. When you add too many different things to keep track of, you can actually diminish the quality of your own world. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't come up with complex lore, but just make sure that it's manageable and at least easy enough to follow for the average reader or watcher if you're making movies or whatever it is you're making. If you're making a comic book, just make sure that there is a way for people to follow it without being overwhelmed with a bunch of different things that they have to stay on track of. Because if you give people too much work, too much homework, they're just not going to be engaged. Lore should reward curiosity, not demand it. Basically, if your story can't stand alone without someone having to go to your wiki page after every chapter, chances are you want to go back to the drawing board. And the third most common failure that I see when people are trying to start their own shared universe of stories is that there's no thematic through line through any of it. And I'm not saying each and every single installation in your universe has to have the same theme, but there should at least be, a visible through line, or maybe there should be certain arcs, certain books or certain series fit one theme, and then maybe you have another block of books that fit another theme. That's kind of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe did. And I'm definitely going to be using the MCU as an example a lot throughout this video because, in my opinion, they're one of the few universes in pop culture that actually did it right. Up until a certain point. Do you want to know what successful shared universes have? It's not power systems, it's not timelines, and it's not even tone. You can get away with having wildly different tones as long as you have a shared through line going throughout the middle of it. The one thing successful universes really share is they all have a central question. Examples of this question might be, what does power cost? Who deserves salvation? And can systems be reformed? Now, obviously, your universe doesn't have to ask those questions specifically, but you want to get down to the root of what your universe is trying to convey. And from there, you can start to build off stories that actually add to the central question instead of just feeling like random excerpts. When universes fail, it's because stories feel adjacent instead of connected. I kind of liken it to stars in a sky. When you look up in the sky sometimes, you might just see random blinking dots of light, but every now and then, you'll find a constellation that tells a bigger story. And that's what you want your universe to feel like. Your eventual crossovers should feel earned, not cosmetic. And when I think of this, I kind of think of the game Fortnite, where there's so many different characters from different IPs and they're all in the same world, just doing a bunch of random stuff, and it feels random, and that's because it is. There's no earned payout to having all of those characters in the same realm, other than the fact that Fortnite just wants to make a ton of money off of those different IPs. And you don't want your crossovers and your stories to feel like that. Your crossovers shouldn't feel cosmetic. They need to feel inevitable.
I am inevitable.
I am a surgeon!
At the end of the day, a shared universe without a through line or a theme is just a filing cabinet of ideas. And next up, we've got arguably one of the most important reasons for why shared universes fail to get off the ground. And it's that people often put expansion before mastery. I'm even guilty of this myself. We just want to keep building and keep getting to the most complex ideas before we're even good at one singular thing. Creators often want to scale too fast. We want to introduce new point of views, new eras, new genres, new platforms, even new ways of telling the story. But you're forgetting one thing when you do this. The audience hasn't mastered any entry point yet. You haven't given them a reason to care about any of the new things you have planned. For example, this is kind of like a math teacher teaching you about World War II before you even learned about World War I. You don't have any of the context beforehand, and you're just going to be really confused when you get to the later stages of the universe. This also looks like building a sequel before readers even know why the first book matters. Here's a secret tip that I've learned throughout the 10 years that I've been creating my own shared universe, the Eternal Keyverse. One beloved story creates way more momentum than 10 mediocre ones. Master one thing before you move on to anything else. Whether that's your world building, characters, plot, theme, master it, and then think about how you can scale. And last but not least, I have the number one reason why shared universes fail to get off the ground, and that's because creators disguise their burnout as ambition. I have an uncomfortable truth for you. Many creative projects don't make it off the ground. Some of them don't even make it onto the page. And it's not because of a lack of ideas, it's because of burnout. It's because the creator has exhausted themselves before they even really started. Now, why does this happen? Well, it's often because of long-term planning without celebrating the short-term wins. It also looks like constant pressure that you're putting upon yourself. Now, pressure often makes diamonds, but it also crushes things too. And more times than not, you're gonna crush yourself under the pressure that you're creating for yourself. It's okay to take things slow, figure out what you really wanna do before you put all that pressure on yourself. At the end of the day, your universe should matter the most to you, not the prospective readers and consumers that you're hoping to engage with. And last but not least, burnout can occur when you start to feel trapped by your own lore. Creating your own universe can be exhausting and daunting, and you can definitely feel trapped in your own lore once things get too big. But my main piece of advice for this is to hone in on one thing, stay there, and then start to expand once you feel comfortable. Your universe should support your creativity, not consume it like Galactus consumes worlds. So, what actually makes a shared universe work? Well, I've got 5 things for you. 1, every universe must emotionally stand on its own. 2, connections should feel like discoveries, not obligations. 3, theme matters way more than canon. 4, expansion should follow your audience's attachment, not the creator's expectations. And 5, the creator has to enjoy the process. That's the most important one. If you don't enjoy the process, it's gonna show up in your work and your audience is gonna feel that. And they're not gonna connect with you or your world. Now, most shared universes don't fail because they're too small. They fail because they try to get too big too fast. You have to give your universe time to feel meaningful. If you're building a shared universe or you're thinking about building one, what is the one story that you want to stick with your readers? What's the one story that you would tell to make readers fall in love with your world? Let me know down in the comments. And if you guys want to peek into my journey of creating my own shared universe of books, you can check out the playlist on screen or in the description. And you can also visit my Patreon page where I post exclusive content regarding the Eternal Keyverse. I've been LDJwrites, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.